Good morning. I am Staff Sergeant Borelli. I've been with the Rhode Island Air National Guard since October of 2014, located at the Quonset Air National Guard Base in Rhode Island. Today we'll be giving a presentation which will briefly describe my duties and responsibilities as a Security Forces member, how this impacts my squadron's mission and my wing's mission, and how all these three relate to some of the Air Force's core missions. And lastly, I will be covering how the less than 100% effectiveness and even the total elimination of security forces, the effects that would have on the Air Force. Some of my duties and responsibilities as a Security Forces member are the security of the base, which I am located, and the protection of personnel and resources within that base. I'm also, as a Security Forces member, we are sometimes tasked with not only the protection of our base at home, but also the protection of bases that we may be deployed to overseas. In reference to some of our operations at home, sometimes we are tasked when there's instances of national security threats or natural disasters strike in certain areas of the nation. An example of this is in September of 2017, my unit was tasked with going down to Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria struck that area. We were tasked with disaster relief efforts, search and rescue. Our main assignment was the protection of the assets, not only sent from our base, but bases across the nation that were down there helping. We were also assigned to not only searching for people, but also the handing out and the protection of the supplies which were intended for the citizens of Puerto Rico. In more current events, there have been nationwide protests and riots due to an officer-involved incident due to an in-custody death of George Floyd. During this time, we were tasked with the protection of the Rhode Island State House and the assets within it. If we were unable to do this, then this would have caused the city police officers to have to take their guys away from the areas which they were more needed, and this would in turn thin those numbers in those other areas and could have potentially caused the harm to more life and property than there was. Furthermore, Security Forces' mission is to organize, train, and equip personnel to provide a safe and secure environment for all personnel and resources on the base. Security Forces has a direct impact on the 143rd Airlift Wing's mission because we provide the protection the wing needs to continue to effectively be the premier C-130J combat air power and cyber center of excellence. When these are effectively accomplished, the Air Force is without a doubt able to conduct their core missions, mostly impacting our air and space superiority, our rapid global mobility, and our global strike capabilities. To further explain, Security Forces is tasked with the protection of all life and property in the Air Force. With the implementation of Security Forces units, the Air Force is able to worry less about the attacks against their bases, and also it allows the protection of assets needed to effectively eliminate enemies which pose a threat to our national security. Without Security Forces at 100% effectiveness, all personnel and resources, most importantly our nuclear programs, would be greatly at risk, causing the Air Force to lose a sense of safety and security. With the elimination of Security Forces, this would completely open the Air Force to attacks and render the branch as a whole ineffective. Security Forces has a large impact on the Air Force's rapid global mobility. With our implementation, we are able to be deployed overseas and protect bases located all over the globe in our many areas of operation. With this being said, the Air Force is able to rapidly deploy aircraft to directly support not only our Air Force personnel, but the other branches of our military. If Security Forces is not at 100% effectiveness, our bases overseas would be vulnerable and ultimately cause our ability of delivery on demand to be greatly affected. With the elimination of Security Forces, we would therefore be unable to conduct missions overseas due to the inevitable demise of our personnel and resources, causing the loss of major bases of operation, and also eliminating the ability to supply ourselves and our fellow branches. Lastly, security forces has a great impact on the Air Force's global strike capabilities. This can also be correlated with our rapid global mobility. The implementation of security forces also allows these same assets overseas to effectively impact the battlefield. This is done by the Air Force's ability to strike anywhere at any time. Again, if security forces were not at 100% effectiveness, this would greatly hinder the Air Force's ability to maintain security of resources that allow us to conduct offensive operations and bring the fight to the enemy. With the elimination of security forces, we would not be able to have aircraft and other resources deployed overseas. And it would ultimately stop us from having these same resources able to reach other parts of the globe. In conclusion, the security forces, we have a great impact on the Air Force, along with our squadrons and our wings. This concludes my presentation.